Hi, everyone. Well, it's been quite a while, I think. I don't even remember the last time I've shared a vision. If I remember right, it had to do with backpacks and mudrooms, and it seems like ages ago. It's interesting the place that the Lord has me in now with so much coaching and so many things going on that time goes by so quickly. And yet, in the midst of it all, he continues to speak, and I only share when I feel like there's something he's specifically asking me to share. So, which I do feel. So, this would have been back in June of last summer, so June of 2023. And I was actually scrolling through before I hit the record button. I was scrolling through the notes that I take when I pray with my friend and have visions. I knew that I had not taken notes about this particular vision because it was just me by myself. And I've honestly been kind of sitting with it for months and unpacking it with the Lord. But I thought I'm just going to scroll back and see if there was anything else that he had said during that time. And of course, it's so telling. So I'm going to read a couple of different things. And then there's a vision that I had personally that I honestly have only shared it with less than a handful, if that, just kind of keeping it to myself because, well, I've just, there are those things that you just ponder in your heart and you contemplate and you unpack with the Lord and continue to understand more fully and gain all the insights. And honestly, I'm never sure if I have all the insights out of it. And so once he tells me to share it, I don't know that means, I've grasped all the insights there are to see in it by any means, but I have enough of an understanding of all the different elements in their own application to me personally, that then he feels, I guess, that it's shareable. And there are lots of things that are just for me that are never shareable. So again, I share when I feel him having me share. And the very few people that I have shared this with have been really impacted by it. So I'm trusting that the Lord has a blessing in it for people. But before I get to that vision, I'm going to share, this would have been June 11th of 2023 in my prayer time with my friend. There were three little pieces, two visions, or one vision and two acronyms. For those of you who know me, he does acronyms quite frequently with me that I had during this. And looking back on it, I think in some ways they connect to the other vision that I had. So the first two are acronyms. The first acronym is KNOW, as in KNOW, not no as in yes and no, but no. And what he said is that know that the kingdom now operating within. That's no. Kingdom now operating within. It's now. And it's within, and it's operating. And then the second one was ROI, and this was like, it had two sides of the coin to this. There's an inside and an outside to this ROI. And this is what I felt he said. Respond obediently inside, rejoice openly and instinctively. So there's an inside obedience and an outside rejoicing. And then I had this vision. This is when I was praying with my friend. So I saw a school traffic guard that was holding up a sign to stop traffic and allow the children to cross the road in the crosswalk. And I sensed that there was a mixture of responses from the drivers. So there were grateful parents who really were appreciating that the the traffic guard was there to help the children across safely. There were aggravated business people who were in a hurry and felt inconvenienced. So when we are each of those different people, the child, the traffic guard, the grateful parent, the aggravated inconvenienced person, we just like think about the times. It's like he was saying, think about the times when I personally am each of those people. When are we each of those individuals in that scenario? And in what types of situations do we show up as each of those individuals? The child, the traffic guard, the grateful parent, or the aggravated inconvenienced person. And then it just became really clear is that the child is the only one who doesn't know anything is going on. They're just innocently trusting the traffic guard to get them safely across the road. They're oblivious to the aggravation and even the gratitude. They're just crossing the road. So just think about those times when you're each of those types of individuals. What's the context of the situation? Okay, so now I'm going to share the vision I had. Again, this would have been June-ish type, right around that same time frame as I had those two acronyms in that vision. It would have been right around that. And it was just my own time with the Lord. And I was, the vision initially was extremely troubling to me. Because in my walk with the Lord, oh my goodness, it's had tumultuous times. And when I initially saw the first part of the vision, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm heading into a tumultuous time. And it took, a few days of processing. And then, like I said, I've sat with it for several months, just pondering it and gleaning more insights from it. But this is what I initially saw. The first part of the vision is I saw myself as a very young child, like little child Trisha, laying on the floor, shot through with bullet holes bleeding out. And I see myself as an adult run to her and pick her up and just hold her in my arms. So this is the first thing I saw, and I, as you can imagine, got extremely emotional. Because I thought, oh my goodness, the Lord's taking me into another long season of incredible healing of hard things that I don't even know are there. But as I sat and kind of cried, all of a sudden I was back in the vision, and this hand was like someone was kneeling behind me, and this hand was reaching over and handing me these objects that I began taking and plugging the holes with. Like one would come over my shoulder, I would take it and I would plug a hole, and another one would come over and I would take it and I would plug a hole. And as I did this, all of a sudden I started looking at what this little object was that was being handed to me, and it was like little communion cups, that have like the little juice and the wafer. I'm not sure what you would call that thing on top. It's a wafer, but I'm not sure it's real substance. Anyway, these communion cups keep coming over my shoulder, over my right shoulder, and I'm grabbing them with my right hand. I'm holding her with my left, and I'm plugging the holes. I'm just plugging one hole after another. And then all of a sudden, the communion cups change, and they're not communion cups anymore. They're like real flesh and blood, like it's real, it's literally flesh and blood, and I just continue to take what's put over my shoulder, and I'm plugging holes, I'm plugging holes, I'm plugging holes, and all of a sudden I have enough, I don't want to say control. I feel like there's enough remedy happening. I'm still continuing to do this, but I have enough wherewithal to look over my shoulder. So I look over my shoulder, and Jesus is kneeling behind me, and he's reaching into his body, and he is taking out his very flesh and blood and handing it to me to put in and plug these holes, right? And that's for the most part the end of the vision. Later, I had kind of that same vision with this element of like people were reaching into me and taking out of me. They would reach into that little girl me and take out of me and take out of me and take out of me. So all of these holes were being created. So I'm going to try and unpack that with you, what I know so far as I've sat with it for months. Things that really stood out to me. The first thing was Jesus. Just Jesus, that he reached into himself and gave me what I needed to heal. To even begin to describe that experience of seeing him reach into his very body and taking out of himself what he knew I needed to plug that hole, and what I needed to plug that hole, and what I needed to plug that hole. And the participatory nature of it, he didn't just take out of himself and plug it for me. Like, we were participating together in this process. And I did not reach into him and take from him. He took what he knew I needed. I received what he knew I needed to plug the next hole. So I didn't presume to just reach in and grab what I thought I needed. I received what he handed to me. I didn't take what wasn't offered. I took what was given for that thing and for that thing and for that thing. And as I'm sitting here watching this in the vision, he says to me, this is communion. This is communion. We're participating together in the healing of my very being. Now, another thing he said to me as I've processed, because I've revisited this vision very frequently for several days right after, and then I've sat with it since. But within a couple of days, I'm kind of back revisiting in my own heart, pondering the vision, and I hear him say to me, thank you for every effort that you've ever made to keep her alive until we found each other. And I'm not sure I can describe what that did to me. I don't know if any of you have ever struggled and had lots of regrets and almost wanted to separate the bad decisions and the bad choices and all that, like this is the bad thing and this over here is the good thing, before Jesus, and all of the ways that I tried to survive in not great ways. I think all of us have been there. Choices and decisions that we've made, and we may not have even fully understood the reasons we were doing those things, but Jesus does. And what he was acknowledging is my motivation behind all of those things was to survive, to find life somehow. And he thanked me, which I'm still trying to wrap my brain around that to some extent. But what it did for me is it put all of me, all of my life, all of beginning to end, everything completely consumed in the compassion and love and understanding of Jesus. I can have and have had mental compassion. Like, I can rationalize why I've done some of the things I've done or why I've made some of the choices that I've made. But for him to express gratitude and to thank me for the motivation of searching for life, trying to figure out how to survive and keep that little girl alive in the midst of really hard things in life, uh, I don't know. I still sit with it, like that he's grateful. He's grateful to me, even for the messes that I've made. It's a little bit mind bending. But that's what I heard him say, and I continue to sit with it. I think if I had to come up with a word that explains what that did was integration. Like it really integrated the whole of me and consumed all of it into his love and compassion. So nothing was separated out anymore and I think in my mind I had elements that had been separated out. This was good, this was bad, and he's like, thank you for everything you've done, all your efforts, all the ways you've tried to keep her alive until we found each other. And then it's been a process very much what the vision looked like. It's been a process since we found each other of walking with him for healing and wholeness in communion, in participation. And I'll say one other thing that I think really stood out to me is I became extremely aware that I was responsible for at least, if not more than at least, 50% of the holes that were in me. And what do I mean by that? People were taking from me, and I had no boundaries. Because of a tendency within myself, I had a definition, or definition might not be right, a mechanism for getting my need met to feel like I belonged or could be accepted. And my mechanism was pleasing, people pleasing. And so what that ended up looking like is many times I would say yes when everything in me wanted to say no. I didn't know that I owned a no. It was just yes. And in that people pleasing, it was like I was agreeing with others against myself, almost like my own self-annihilation in the process. So obviously in this healing over the last almost 17 years with the Lord, he's not in a hurry, but he's thorough. In the 17 years of healing with the Lord, I've learned yes. I've learned no. I've learned how to negotiate. I've learned that's not the right mechanism for acceptance. In fact, if I'm pleasing according to them, then anything in any way that I'm accepted it's really, they're just accepting themselves, because that's not even me. So it's a denial and a self-annihilation that comes from that people-pleasing, from that not knowing how to say no, not knowing how to be authentic to what truly I want, I desire, I need. And so I've grown a lot in that capacity to be fully who I am in Christ and allow him, oh my goodness, to heal all those holes, all those wounds, to fill all those broken, hollow, voided out, black hole, shallow places with himself, and to receive the fullness of his compassion for all my misguided efforts to find life. Even though that life was apart from him, my search was, how do I live? How do I survive? And just to receive his appreciation for the intention and motivations that were driving that. So I will leave it here. There may be lots more in that I need to continue to unpack with him, but for whatever reason, I have felt impressed for the last several days to share this. And so in obedience, I'm doing that. I hope in some small way it's a blessing. I'm assuming that there may be someone who needs to hear that needs to hear it, that it may touch your heart, and give you a greater glimpse into the compassion of our Lord Jesus Christ for us. And this is communion. This is communion, participating with Him for our wholeness, not apart from Him, but with Him. So I hope you're blessed, and as always, thank you for listening.